Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to speak today about an amendment, which is an amendment that Senator Toomey and I are working on, amendment number 3458. And I'll have some remarks about this amendment to be followed by my colleague from Pennsylvania, Senator Toomey. We know that since 9/11, we've made a good deal of progress on airline security, but we know that there are still a number of common sense steps that we can take to bolster security at our airports and on our airplanes. We also know that since 9/11, there have been 15 hijacking attempts around the world, and we know that terrorists still aim to repeat those actions and improve upon their deadly tactics. It's also of concern that federal programs designed to increase aviation security, such as the Federal Flight Deck Officers Program, acronym being FFDO, that program to train and arm pilots continues to experience drastic cuts and reduced budgets. After 9/11, Congress mandated the installation of reinforced cockpit doors, and the FAA regulations stated that the reinforced cockpit door should remain locked while closed. However, pilots and flight attendants must open the door frequently for a variety of reasons, all of them reasons we understand, whether it's to use the restroom or to get a meal, rest times for pilots on international flights when they're not in the cockpit. So we know that they have to open that door on a regular basis. Simulations have shown that when the cockpit door is open, the cockpit can in fact be breached and the plane can be hijacked by one estimate in less than 4 seconds. A voluntary airline industry movement towards adopting second barrier, meaning a barrier other than the actual cockpit door, began in 2003, but a commitment to deploying these devices has waned significantly since the year 2010. Senator Toomey and I have introduced an amendment that would close a gaping hole in our airline aviation security systems, thus achieving what Congress intended when it mandated installation of the fortress door after 9/11. The amendment that we are working on together is named after a Bucks County, Pennsylvania resident, Captain Victor Saraceni, who piloted United Flight 175 when it was hijacked by terrorists and flown into the World Trade Center. The amendment would require that each new commercial aircraft install a barrier other than the cockpit door to prevent access to the flight deck of an aircraft. A secondary cockpit barrier is a lightweight wire mesh gate installed between the passenger cabin and the cockpit door that's locked into place and blocks access to the flight deck. While the cockpit doors are currently reinforced, secondary barriers provide significantly more security to airline companies, to their employees, obviously to the pilots, and of course, more security for passengers as well. A 2007 study concluded that the secondary barrier dramatically improves the effectiveness of the other onboard security measures currently in place, and also works as a standalone security layer. And it's the most cost-effective, efficient, and safest way to protect the cockpit. There's no way to fully and completely pay tribute to the extraordinary courage of Captain Saraceni and others who were lost on that tragic day. He gave the full measure of his life. As Lincoln said in another context, the last full measure of devotion to his country. And he also, of course, gave the full measure not only for his nation, but for his wife, Ellen, and his family. And they have, and especially Ellen, whom I've come to know, have worked tirelessly in the years since to increase airline safety for other pilots, for passengers and for the airlines themselves. So I'm urging our colleagues here in the Senate to pass this amendment, to continue to strengthen and secure our nation's airspace, and to further improve airline safety. And I look forward to hearing Senator Toomey's remarks, and grateful to be working with him on this amendment. I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from Pennsylvania.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I want to thank Senator Casey for his great work on this. We have been partnering on getting this accomplished for some time now. This is the opportunity to do it. This is the right legislative vehicle. This is the right bill. This is the FAA reauthorization bill. This is exactly where we ought to be taking a common sense step toward making commercial aircraft safer to travel on. It's as simple as that. And I'm hoping that very soon we will pass a motion to proceed so that we are on the bill. We have already filed this amendment. As soon as we can, we will bring it up so that it is pending, so that we can pass this amendment. This passed the House Transportation Committee unanimously, and I don't know why it wouldn't have the same outcome here. So I want us to get on this bill. I want to offer this amendment. I want to get on with this, because Senator Casey is exactly right. In the immediate aftermath of that appalling attack on September 11th, Congress passed legislation to require that the cabin door be reinforced, become a stronger barrier. And that's exactly what happened. And it's a terrific barrier. It's very, very hard to see how anyone could break down the cabin door and access the cockpit when that door is closed. The problem is the door is not always closed. It is necessarily, as Senator Casey pointed out, it is necessarily opened up from time to time during the flight. This creates the threat. It creates the opportunity for a terrorist who's so inclined to rush that open door. A very well-reinforced door is useless when it's open, but that is the risk. And this isn't just our assessment of this. The FAA has acknowledged the serious nature of this threat. Let me quote briefly from their April 2015 advisory. The FAA said, and I quote, "On long flights, as a matter of necessity, crew members must open the flight deck door to access lavatory facilities, to transfer meals to flight crew members, or to switch crew positions for crew rest purposes. The opening and closing of the flight deck door, referred to as door transition, reduces the protective anti-intrusion, anti-penetration benefits of the reinforced door. During this door transition, the flight deck is vulnerable." End quote. So this is not some theory here. This is an objective fact. It is observed by the FAA advisory. It is, by the way, the 9/11 Commission also observed that the terrorists were very keyed into the notion that the best time to strike would be when a door was open. That was at a time when the primary door was not as well reinforced now. Now the opening of the door clearly creates the opportunity for the terrorists. So this threat is real. It persists. There have been attempts to breach cockpits since 9/11. There have been successful attempts, including the successful hijacking of a Turkish airline flight in 2006. And we know that the secondary barrier that Senator Casey and I are proposing, we know that this would be extremely effective. It's low cost. It is lightweight. It is not intrusive. It is not deployed at all except immediately prior to opening the primary door. So this is just a common sense solution. As I said, Mr. President, it will provide a significant upgrade in the safety of these aircraft. We've got an amendment, and it has been filed, and as soon as we can, we would like to make this pending, and I would urge all of my colleagues to support this amendment. Let's get this passed. Let's pass the FAA reauthorization bill and get it to the President. And with that, Mr. President, I yield the floor.